use this to help me augment and legitimize the negated consequence of modus tollens. In chronologically writing this section, this is just to give you an idea of how I built this system. And chronologically writing this section, I didn't initially know that I would be citing the USGS. After realizing that I needed facts based on the negated consequence of modus tollens, I found the citation below and then returned to insert examples of the USGS. Thus, despite the fact that in terms of reading this section, the claim, what I literally wrote, quote unquote, for example, the USGS comes before the citation. So, what in the hell am I talking about? This line, for example, the United States Geological Survey, is part of this new augmented sentence that we're constructing. That's what we're writing a few paragraphs, a few sentences. So this line, as far as you reading it, real time, comes before this citation at the bottom. In actuality, in building this sentence, this chronologically, this citation came before the sentence, for example, the United States Geological Survey. I don't write my essays, I don't write my books in an order from top down. It goes all types of ways because the logic tells me what I need next. The logic mandates that I need stats demonstrating the negated consequence. I find stats demonstrating the negated consequence from the United States Geological Survey, and I copy and paste that as a citation. Then I go back up into my argument and I write, for example, the United States Geological Survey, so that the sentence, for example, United States Geological Survey, as written and presented in terms of text, came in the construction, in building this, after me inserting the citation. Citation came first, despite the presentation. Why is that important? Because I'm really trying to show you how to construct this. I would normally never tell people that, but I don't have a problem. It's not a big secret. But the idea is I do not write my stuff top down. First sentence and second sentence, oh, well, this came, no. Sometimes what appears on page 4 came, 7 weeks before what appears on page 2, right? It depends on where the logic sends me is where I write and what I write. So, that's that bit. Thus, despite the fact that, in terms of reading this section, the claim, for example, the USGS, comes before the citation, in actually constructing the argument chronologically, the citation was inserted before I wrote that claim. And I just explained how and why. And then has documented the following effects on available water supplies. And then here's my full citation. Increase groundwater pumping to support population growth in South Central Arizona, including the Tucson and Phoenix, Tucson. Oh, it's probably Tucson. It's Tucson, Arizona, right? Tucson. I'm bad with geography. Tucson, I think it's Tucson. Tucson and Phoenix areas has resulted, people are going to have jokes. They're like, he can do all this logic, he can't pronounce Tucson. I think it's Tucson. Including Tucson and Phoenix areas, has resulted in water level declines of between, and then very specifically now, 300 and 500 feet in much of the areas. Land subsidies was first noticed in 1940s, and subsequently as much as 12 to 12.5 feet of subsidies has been measured. Additionally, lowering the water table has resulted in the loss of streamlined vegetation. Emphasis added. Anytime in my writing you see emphasis added, I'm trying to tell the reader, I don't really say this either, but I try to tell the reader if there's emphasis added, listen, this is a point of logical connection that I just made between these two things. The two things that I've made logical, because I put emphasis. It wasn't in the original, I put emphasis. So in an actual writing, it wouldn't be underlined, obviously. I put it in italics, and then I put emphasis added. Support population growth, bottom of page 7, and water level declines, I've applied additional emphasis. It wasn't in the original, but it's something that jumped out to me, and I recognize a logical relationship that I can further expand. Hold on 1 second, let me see how much more we got. Just a little bit. Okay, so, thus, in the preceding example, water conservation efforts have failed, right? So it says, thus, water conservation efforts have failed. I inserted, thus, in the preceding example, came before, thus, in the preceding example, water conservation has failed. Now, we can read the sentence without all of the sort of me identifying the component parts of the sentence. So what you should do is read the raw formulation, go back, read the augmented formulation, and then you can logically, on your own time, see and understand exactly how I did each part. That's what this is. Every single itemized part of this sentence. And that's what we're really doing, is a very laborious freaking deconstruction of really an argument just to prove that this can be done. Here's what it sounds like without any explanation, without any logic. So let's read it together. If water is, and this is just the second part, we already have a concluding argument from section 1. This is section 2's augmented argument. If water is conserved, then water is stored in the water table. However, in many parts of the United States, there is less water in the water table. For example, the United States Geological Survey has documented the following effects on available water supplies. Quote, increased groundwater pumping to support population growth in south-central Arizona, including Tucson and Phoenix areas, has resulted in water level declines of between 300 and 500 feet in much of the area. Land subsidies was first noticed in the 1940s, and subsequently as much as 12.5 feet of subsidies has been measured. Additionally, lowering the water table has resulted in the loss of stream-side vegetation, emphasis added. Thus, in the preceding example, water conservation efforts have failed. Okay, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like a regular paper. We see just how freaking ridiculously dense the logic is to govern this, because now we're an hour and a half into the lecture, right? That one paragraph seems unassuming, but if you want to critique this, you had better be on your A game, because you're not going to be able to jump into this argument and find very many weaknesses at all. You might want to disagree with it, sure, but it's not only logically sound, logically valid, it's backed up by scientific data, right? So, you know, it's a good sort of, again, how do we arrive at these first principles? How do we arrive at these rules? Because there's a relationship in observing the world that physicists and hard scientists make careers out of discovering these relationships. I always say this in my videos, that really, really good social scientists, and I consider myself among the best of us, really good social scientists should and do approach the world in exactly the same method. We don't make up stuff. We don't invent stuff. You might coin a phrase, but you don't invent stuff. There is an observable, logical relationship. I'm not a physical scientist, so I don't use the tools of physical scientists. I am a social scientist, and the tool that I use, and I use like a freaking broadsword, is logic. So I don't sit down and make up anything. The book that I just wrote on genocidal intent, again, is an example of, listen, I might not have solved the cube perfectly, but I'm the first person to do it. No one did it before me. And I did it out of pure abstract contemplation and statistical reading of census data and such, and saw the trends and discussed it. Right? It's easy to critique. It's another person to actually do it. Anyone can critique. There's no power in that. There's no power in critique. There's power in construction and destruction. If you can construct, you have power. If you can destroy, you have power. But if you critique, you're on the sidelines, watching the game. Whew, this is like mentally exhausting, but it's super worth it. Think links. So, you have to train yourself to see the implication of what is not directly stated and build on those latencies. This is an intuitive process. You know, it's scary where this is going, I think, because there's something about my brain, and this goes into some occultist crap or otherworld stuff or God level, spiritual, who knows what. You know, and you guys know me, I don't make any affirmations of anything in my lectures, but it's like no matter what I write, no matter what I do, out of sheer serendipity or coincidence, I end up at the same freaking spot. The logic takes me the same freaking place every time. I want to go somewhere else. I think I'm doing a lecture series on freaking water conservation, and then what the hell do I see, right?